Super Smash Bros. Clones have been around as long as Super Smash Bros. Has, but it doesn't feel like many of them have found their way to PC until recently. Games like Brawl Out and Rivals of Aether are probably the most high-profile examples, but I've been finding a lot of fun and enjoyment with Kung Fu Panda Showdown of Legendary Legends. The game was released back in 2015 to all major 7th and 8th generation consoles, and found its way to PC early the next year. It was developed by Vicious Cycle Software and was produced by Little Orbit, which is also the pairing responsible for Adventure Time Finn and Jake Investigations. As a disclaimer, be aware that the PC version of this game does not support mouse and keyboard, and it must be played with a controller. It makes no difference to me, as that's how I intended on playing the game anyway, but it's something you should probably be aware of. So yeah, this is a Smash Bros. Clone, also known as a platform fighter. They're fighting games that revolve around knocking your opponent off of the stage, rather than trying to whittle their health down to 0. In this case, everyone starts off a match with 100% HP, and they get thrown farther and farther as that descends towards 0. Hitting 0 doesn't result in death, however, it just reflects that they have hit the maximum throwing distance. This is essentially the exact same system Smash Bros. Has, except the numbers are just backwards, and Smash's upper limit is far more extreme. Many of this game's systems are exactly like Smash, for that matter. Holding down one of your triggers grants you a bubble shield that allows you to roll when you tilt in a direction. All of your attacks are mapped to 2 buttons, which can be held down for increased power. There are no character-specific inputs, etc. I think it would be best to spend my time on what this game does differently than Smash. For one, its characters and levels are obviously based off of the Kung Fu Panda franchise. I am unfamiliar with the franchise beyond the incredible first movie, but there's a good variety of characters to pick from. They're all easy to pick up and play, and each has a slightly different style that they bring to the battlefield too. The level design never quite reaches the creative and artistic heights that Smash levels hit either, but they are relatively dynamic compared to most other platform fighters. One level will have you dodging your way out of a giant swinging axe in the center of the arena, while other levels will have you constantly be in motion. You can also just be the straight man and play a traditional platform fighter arena as well. Each character has their own special ability that can be used once the gauge is filled up at maximum. They're all radically different depending on each character that you play as, but some are cooler than others. Shen's ability here has him manning cannons and firing at everyone on screen, but you have zero agency in what gets fired, it's all automated. You will probably want to spend most of your time playing the game's multiplayer options. You can play locally or online with up to 4 players, but good luck with the matchmaking. Don't worry for all of you purists out there. You can indeed turn off all items. No items, Talong only, Noodle Shop. When you're not engaging in the game's multiplayer, you'll have to play the limited single-player content. This area of the game is incredibly lacking. Your primary mode is Showdown of Legends. It's your classic arcade mode you'd find in a lot of other fighting games. You get a small cutscene when you open, but sadly none for completing the gauntlet. It's 10 matches of increasing challenge. Each round will cycle between one of the game's different modes. Sometimes it'll be a traditional one-on-one with either stock or timed, but other times it'll be King of the Hill style, coin rush, or sometimes even team-based brawling. You can jump into practice or tutorial mode if you want to sharpen up your skills for the showdown, but the game is basic enough that you probably won't need to. The tutorial mode is frustratingly filled with loading screens between each section, the odd chance that you need it. A lot of the items in the game are ones that summon small partners. Items like this are cool because they allow you to represent more characters, but they break up the pacing here by forcing you to watch a small animation each time once used. It's also sad that Mantis and Viper are relegated to just these partner summons and not playable characters themselves. I know trying to make hitboxes for characters that are this small would be weird, but these are members of the Furious 5 we're talking about here. Make it work. Every character in the game has the ability to dash forward very rapidly. You have 3 charges that were set upon death. It's a cool system, giving you a little bit of a get-out-of-jail-free card if you find yourself in a tricky spot. but I wish that not every character had the exact same amount of times that they could use it. It makes the roster feel ever so slightly more homogenized. Perhaps breaking them down into weight classes and giving some fighters more dashes than others would have been the way to go. The worst problem that Kung Fu Panda suffers is that of control. Everything is just ever so slightly more sluggish than what you might expect. Your characters will linger in a combo for one more hit than you want them to, trying to turn around mid-air is nearly impossible, and picking up items is kind of a disaster with how accurate they expect you to be. The controls lean far closer to Super Smash Bros. 64 than they do Super Smash Bros. Melee. If you played both of those games, you'll know exactly what I mean. But eventually, I did get used to the controls. After about an hour or so of game time, I was juggling my opponents with ease and sending them flying off the stage. The same core fun that exists in Smash exists here, if you're willing to do the digging for it. Kung Fu Panda Showdown of Legendary Legends is incredibly flawed, but the flaws were never too extreme to prevent me from having a good time. It gets the basics right. The controls, although sluggish at times, are simple and allow anyone to pick up and play. The roster is large and diverse, the stages are fun and interactive, the character models are high quality, and the music is spot on. It may not be as refined or polished as Smash Bros., but Smash Bros. Isn't available for $10 on the Steam store.